She was already half frozen when he found her, one gloved hand curled around a steel case like her life depended on it. And in the storm-white dark of a Montana winter, it did. Ethan Cole had two rules since his wife walked out 3 years ago. Don't trust strangers. Don't invite trouble inside. He broke both in under a minute, because by morning the men hunting her would be circling his house, and the little girl sleeping upstairs would be the one they'd use to make him talk. Stay with me to the end of this story. Tap that like button, and drop the name of the city you're watching from in the comments so I can see how far this one travels. The snow had been falling since noon, and by 8 o'clock the road past Cole's place had disappeared under it. Ethan couldn't see the fence line anymore. He couldn't see the mailbox he'd set the week Lily was born. He couldn't see much past the porch light, which was doing its best and losing. He stood at the kitchen window with a coffee that had gone cold an hour ago, watching the storm do what Montana storms did in February. Take everything soft and make it hard, take everything small and make it smaller. The weather radio had been chattering all afternoon about a cold snap coming down out of Canada, -20 with the wind, and he'd pulled Lily's sled inside and stacked 2 extra cords of wood against the mudroom wall and told himself that was enough. It wasn't enough. Nothing ever was, with a kid. Daddy. Lily was in the doorway in her flannel pajamas, the ones with the reindeer, 6 years old and already suspicious of bedtime. Her hair was the color of wheat stubble in October, and there were 2 pink spots on her cheeks from the bath. I told you a story already, kiddo. You told me half a story. Same thing. It is not the same thing. She patted across the linoleum in her bare feet and leaned against his leg. The princess didn't even get to the tower yet. He set the coffee down, put his hand on the top of her head. Her hair smelled like the cheap strawberry shampoo that was the only kind she'd tolerate. He thought, not for the first time, that fatherhood was mostly just trying not to flinch when something this small trusted you this much. Okay, he said, one more chapter, then teeth. I brushed. Then the other teeth. I don't have other teeth. Everybody has other teeth. It's science. She laughed, and it was the kind of laugh that made him remember he was 32 and not 50, which was how he mostly felt. He scooped her up. She weighed next to nothing, and carried her back down the hall. The floorboards creaked in the spot they always creaked. The house was 110 years old, and it complained about everything, and he loved it the way a man loves a dog that's half blind and costs him money. He was 3 paragraphs into The Princess when he heard it. At first, he thought it was the wind. The wind up here could sound like almost anything. A train, a woman, a chainsaw left running in a far field. But this was steadier than wind, a muffled thump, a dragging sound. Then the thump again, closer to the porch. He stopped reading. Daddy? Just the storm, sweetheart. You stopped. Just for a second. Listen. Close your eyes. I'll finish it. He finished it fast. He kissed the top of her head and pulled the quilt up to her chin and turned off the lamp. In the hallway, he stood still for a count of 10, listening. Thump. Not the wind. Ethan went down the stairs with his hand on the banister, skipping the 4th step because the 4th step talked. In the mudroom, he pulled on his boots without tying them and took the Remington 12-gauge down off the rack above the door. He thumbed the slide back a 1/4 inch to check the chamber. Loaded. He always kept it loaded. Out here, an unloaded gun was just an expensive stick. He cracked the door. The wind hit him in the face like an open hand. The porch light threw a cone of yellow onto the snow, and at the edge of that cone, just past the gate, there was a shape that didn't belong. Dark. Crumpled. Human. Hey, he called. Hey, you okay? The shape didn't move. He looked left. He looked right. The driveway was a white desert. No tire tracks in or out. Whoever was lying out there had walked. He waited another beat. He'd lived in this part of the state his whole life, and he knew what sensible men did when they found something strange in a storm. They called it in and let the sheriff sort it out. He also knew what the sheriff would say when he picked up. He'd say, Ethan, I got 3 wrecks on the pass and a power line down on County 6. I'll get there when I get there, and by then whoever was in the snow wouldn't be in the snow anymore. They'd be under it. He swore once, quietly, and went out. The cold took his breath before he was off the porch. 12 steps to the gate. He counted them because counting kept panic small. The shape resolved into a body as he got close. A woman. Young. Face down. A dark coat that wasn't heavy enough. One hand was bare and the other was gloved, and the gloved one was curled around something rectangular and hard. He crouched and turned her over. She was maybe 24, 25. A face that in better weather would have been pretty. Sharp cheekbones, dark brows, and right now was the color of the inside of a seashell. Her lips had gone from pink to a waxy gray. There was a cut above her left eye, narrow and clean, the kind of cut a ring makes when a fist is attached to it. Ice had collected in her eyebrows. Her breath came in little short, shallow bursts he could barely see. "Hey," he said. "Hey, ma'am, can you hear me?" Her eyes flickered, didn't open. One of her hands moved, just her fingers, and they moved toward the case, not away from it. "Okay," he said. "Okay, I'm going to pick you up." He set the shotgun down in the snow. He got his arms under her and stood. She weighed less than a bag of feed. Her head fell against his shoulder, and he felt how cold her skin was through his shirt, colder than anything alive ought to be, and for a second he thought he was already too late. Then she made a sound, a thin, exhausted sound, somewhere between a word and nothing, and he started walking. He almost forgot the case. He stopped 10 feet from the porch and squinted back through the snow, and there it was, half buried already. He couldn't carry both. He couldn't leave either. He set her as gently as he could against the porch post and went back and got the case and came back and picked her up again, and by then the snow had eaten the prints he'd made on the way out. Inside, the kitchen was too warm and too bright. He laid her on the braided rug in front of the wood stove because he didn't want to track snow any further, and because the rug was the warmest spot in the house. He shut the door. The wind slammed it the rest of the way for him. Up close, under the light, she looked worse. Her fingernails were blue. Her bare hand was so pale it looked translucent, and he could see the veins on the back of it like blue ink on tissue paper. He unlaced her boots and pulled them off, and her socks were wet all the way through. He pulled the socks off. Her feet were white at the toes and ugly red at the heels, and he knew what that meant. He'd done a season on a search and rescue volunteer crew out of Missoula when he was 19, before Lily, before everything, and he still remembered the training. You don't warm them up fast. You warm them up slow. You don't rub. You don't put them in a hot bath. You get the wet stuff off, and you put dry stuff on, and you let the body do what the body does. "Daddy?" Lily was on the stairs. He turned too fast and almost knocked the coffee mug off the counter. Hey, baby, you're supposed to be in bed." "Who's that lady?" "I don't know yet. She got caught in the storm. She's really cold." Lily came down 2 more steps and stopped. She was holding the stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was 2, the one with the missing ear. Her eyes were very large. "Is she going to die?" "No. You don't know." He looked at her. He could lie. He was tired enough to lie. Instead, he said, "I'm going to do everything I can so she doesn't. Okay? Okay? I need you to do me a favor. I need the blue blanket off my bed, and the green one out of the hall closet, and those hand warmer packets in the drawer by the fridge. Can you get those?" She nodded. She moved fast when she had a job. Lily did. She came back with her arms full and her chin holding the top of the stack. He packed the hand warmers into the woman's armpits, against her stomach, at the small of her back. He wrapped her in the blankets. He took off her coat. It was soaked through, cheaper than it looked from a distance. And he saw bruising along her collarbone, a blue-green smudge the size of a man's thumb. Older than tonight, days old. The case fell out of her grip when he lifted her to slide the blanket underneath. It made a heavy, muffled thud against the rug. He looked at it. It was maybe the size of a large hardback book. Matte aluminum. 2 locks. No labels, no stickers, no scratches that told a story. It didn't look like the kind of case you bought at a sporting goods store. It looked like the kind of case that came with something inside it that somebody had paid for. Lily was watching him look at it. "What's in it?" she said. "I don't know." "Can we open it?" "No." "Why not?" "Because it isn't ours." She thought about that. She was a thinker, Lily. Her mother had been too, he remembered, back when her mother had still been around, though that particular quality had turned out to be a very different thing in the 2 of them. "Daddy?" Lily said. "Yeah." "There's blood on her glove." He looked. There was. Not a lot. A smear along the palm, rust brown, mostly dry. He hadn't seen it in the snow. He saw it now. Go upstairs, he said. But, Lily, go upstairs. Brush your teeth again. Get in bed. Leave your door open. I'll come check on you in 10 minutes. Something in his voice must have been new, because she went without arguing. He listened to her feet on the stairs. He heard the bathroom tap. He heard the squeak the hinges of her door always made. Then he knelt again by the woman on his rug. Her breathing had evened out a little. Color was coming back to her lips, slow, the way color comes back to a photograph when you dip it in the tray. He pressed 2 fingers to the pulse under her jaw. Thready, but there. He went to the kitchen and filled a bowl with water that wasn't hot, only warm, and brought it back with a clean dishcloth and dabbed the cut above her eye. It opened a little as the dried blood softened, and he saw it wasn't deep. He pressed the cloth against it. Her eyelids fluttered. "Ma'am," he said. "Ma'am, can you hear me? You're safe. You're inside. You're in a house about 9 miles off the main highway. What's your name?" Her lips moved. No sound. "Try again. Take your time." A breath. Then, barely, Don't call." "Don't call who?" "Anyone." He sat back on his heels. "Please," she said. Her eyes were open now, barely, 2 slits of gray in a face the color of skim milk. "Please. Not 911. Not a hospital. Not anyone. Ma'am, you're hypothermic. You've got frostbite on your feet. I don't know what else is wrong with you. I can't. They'll come." "Who will?" Her eyes closed again. "Who will come?" he said louder, but she was under. Just like that, like a light turned off. Her breathing kept going, slow, ragged, but she was gone, back to wherever it was her body had taken her to survive the last hours. He sat there on the rug for a long time. Outside, the storm was getting worse. He could hear it working at the north side of the house, the side where the wind always came from, looking for a seam. Finding one, probably. The old place had 1,000 of them. He looked at the case. He looked at her. He looked at the dark smear on her glove and the bruise on her collarbone that was older than tonight. He got up and went to the front window and looked out through the lace curtain his mother had hung there in 1978 and never come back to take down. The driveway was white. The road past the driveway was white. There were no headlights anywhere. There wouldn't be, not for miles, not in this. He told himself she'd walked out of the storm. She must have. The road was the only way in, but the road was completely covered, and he hadn't seen tracks. He drew the curtain back across the window. He didn't sleep. He moved her once, around midnight, off the rug and onto the old couch by the stove, because the rug was starting to feel not enough. He fed the stove. He checked on Lily, asleep, one arm around the rabbit, mouth open. He went back down. He sat in the kitchen chair across from the couch with the shotgun across his knees, and he watched the woman breathe. Around 2, she stirred. Around 3, she spoke a name he couldn't catch. Around 4, she opened her eyes all the way for the first time. She saw him. She saw the shotgun. Her whole body tightened like a wire. "Easy," he said. "Easy. I'm not. Where am I?" "My house." "Where's your house?" 80 miles east of Missoula, little town called Harlan Creek. You walked up to my gate about 8 hours ago. She processed that. He could see her processing it. Her eyes moved from him to the door to the window to the clock on the wall. "Who else is here?" "My daughter. She's upstairs. She's 6. Something passed across her face that he wasn't expecting. A flinch, almost a wince, like the fact of the daughter hurt her. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" She didn't answer. "What's your name?" he asked. A pause. Long enough that he knew what was coming was going to be a lie, or at least a choice. "Arya?" "Arya what?" "Just Arya." He nodded slowly. "Okay, I'm Ethan. Ethan Cole. You want some water?" "Yes." He got up slow, watching her, and filled a glass at the sink and brought it back. Her hand shook taking it. She drank half of it in one go. "You got frostbite on your feet," he said. "Not as bad as it could be. You were lucky. Another hour out there, you wouldn't have been." He sat back down, shotgun still across his knees, not pointed at her, not pointed away. "I got some questions." "Okay." "Where were you walking from?" I don't know. Ma'am, I really don't. I was in a car. I got out of the car. I started walking. I don't know which direction. I saw a light. Your light. Whose car? She looked at the case. It was on the floor at the foot of the couch, where he'd put it. She looked at it the way a mother looks at a child across a crowded room. Checking, always checking. I can't tell you that, she said. Can't or won't. Both. He almost laughed. He didn't, but it was close. There was something about her that was not what he'd expected. When he'd pulled her out of the snow, she'd been a body. Now she was a person, and the person had her shoulders square against the couch cushions and was looking him in the eye. And whatever had been done to her, and something had been done to her, he could see that now, the bruise, the cut, the way she'd said they'll come. It hadn't broken whatever made her her. Arya, he said, I got a little girl upstairs. She is the one thing in this world I care about. You understand me? The only thing. So I am going to ask you one question, and I want a real answer, or I'm putting you in my truck and driving you to the hospital in Missoula, no matter what you say. Is somebody going to come to my house looking for you? She was quiet. Yes or no, Arya? I don't know. That's not yes or no. It's the truth, she said. I don't know if they can find me here. I did everything I could. I burned the phone, I left the car, I walked off the road. I don't think they can, but I don't know. Who's they? She shook her head. Arya, I can't. You can. You're on my couch. You're in my house. My kid is in the room above us. You can. Her eyes filled. They didn't spill. She held them back with what looked like a trained muscle, and he thought, not for the first time that night, whoever you are not what you look like. If I tell you, she said, and they find me here, and you know, they will kill you and your daughter. And if you don't tell me, they'll only kill me. He set the shotgun down against the side of the chair. He leaned forward. He put his elbows on his knees. Lady, he said, I've already made the decision. I made it when I picked you up. I don't get to unmake it now. She looked at him a long time. Not tonight, she said at last. Please, not tonight. I can't. I'm not. Let me sleep. Let me sleep, and in the morning I'll tell you what I can. Please. He looked at her. He looked at the case. He looked at the window where the storm was starting finally to thin. Okay, he said. In the morning. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. He moved her pillow so her head was flat. He put another blanket over her. He left the lamp on low because he'd read somewhere once that people coming out of hypothermia shouldn't wake up in the dark, and because he didn't want her waking up and not knowing where she was and doing something stupid. He carried the case with him upstairs. He didn't open it. He set it on the top shelf of his closet, behind a box of his wife's things he'd never gotten around to throwing out. He looked in on Lily. She hadn't moved. He stood in her doorway for a full minute. Her chest went up and down. The rabbit was under her chin. He went to his own room, and he didn't undress, and he didn't lie down. He sat on the edge of the bed with the shotgun across his knees again and looked out the window which faced the road. The snow was almost done falling. In about 6 hours, if it didn't start again, the plows would come through. The road would open. And anything that had been held back by the weather, anything that was out there looking for a woman who'd walked off into a storm, clutching a locked metal case, would be able to move again too. He thought about waking Lily up, packing a bag, getting in the truck before sunrise, and driving somewhere the woman on his couch didn't know existed. He thought about it for a long time. He didn't do it. Down the hall, through 2 doors and a floor, he heard the small sound of a woman he'd known for 6 hours turning over on his couch and making a noise in her sleep like someone being hurt. He gripped the shotgun and watched the road. Outside, the snow stopped, and somewhere, miles off, too far to see and too far to hear, a pair of headlights came on. The headlights were gone by dawn. Ethan had watched them the way a man watches a snake on a porch step, without moving, without blinking, measuring. They'd come up the county road around 5 in the morning, slow, too slow for a plow and too slow for a neighbor, and they'd paused at the top of the long rise where his driveway met the county blacktop. Paused for maybe 40 seconds. Then they'd kept going. Not back the way they came. Forward. East, toward the Herndon place and the empty stretch of fence line past it. And eventually, if you drove long enough, nothing. 40 seconds was long enough to look at a mailbox. 40 seconds was long enough to write down a number. He didn't sleep after that. He made coffee at 6:30 in the dark kitchen, moving by the light of the stove, and he drank it standing up at the window with the shotgun leaned against the cabinet by his hip. The sky outside was the color of a bruise going yellow. The snow had stopped. The wind was still working at the north eaves, but it had lost its teeth. On the couch, the woman slept. She'd stopped shivering sometime in the night. Her hair had dried in dark tangles against the pillow, and her face, no longer the color of skim milk, had become a face again. Small nose, a faint scar at the corner of her mouth she hadn't been born with, lashes that looked too long for the rest of her. Asleep, she looked about 19. Awake, he'd put her closer to 25. It was strange the way sleep could strip years off of people and strangers both. He thought about the name she'd given him, Arya. It wasn't the kind of name people picked for a lie. A lie was Mary. A lie was Sarah. Arya was either true or a vanity, and this woman, whoever she was, didn't strike him as vain. Upstairs, a door opened. "Daddy." "Down here, Bug." Lily came down the stairs in her reindeer pajamas and her slipper socks, the rabbit under her arm. She stopped on the bottom step and looked at the couch. The blanket rose and fell on the woman's chest, slow. "Still there," she whispered. "Still there. She's not dead. She's not dead." "Okay." He held out his arm and Lily came under it and he held her against his side for a second. Just that. The small warmth of her, the cowlick at the back of her head tickling his chin. She smelled like sleep and strawberry shampoo and a little like the maple syrup she'd spilled on her pajama sleeve 2 nights ago and which he realized now, failed to get out in the wash. "You hungry?" he said. "Kind of." "Eggs? Can I have the cinnamon toast?" "You can have both." "Daddy?" "What? Is she going to stay?" He didn't answer right away. He walked her to the kitchen table and lifted her into her chair and put the toaster down. "I don't know yet," he said. "Probably just until she can walk. Then she'll go home." "Where's her home?" "I don't know." "Why not?" "She didn't tell me." "Why not?" "Because sometimes grown-ups have things they don't want to talk about yet." Lily considered this with the seriousness she brought to all information about adults. She was quiet while he cracked eggs into the pan, quiet while the butter hissed, quiet while he slid 2 pieces of bread into the toaster. "Daddy," she said. "Yeah." "Is she a bad person?" He thought about that while the eggs cooked. He thought about the bruise on the collarbone and the cut above the eye and the blood on the glove that had not been hers, or at least hadn't all been hers. And the way she had said, "They'll only kill me," flat, the way somebody reports the weather. "No, Bug," he said. "I don't think she is." "Are there bad people looking for her?" He turned. She was watching him over the rim of her juice cup. Her eyes were very blue in the gray morning light. "Why would you ask me that?" "Because you brought the gun downstairs." He hadn't realized she'd seen. He should have. Lily saw everything. Lily had seen everything since she was 2, which was something he was proud of and afraid of in equal measure, because a kid who saw everything was a kid who understood things she shouldn't have to. "There might be," he said. "I'm being careful, that's all. You don't need to be scared." "I'm not scared." "Okay. I'm just asking." "Okay." She ate her eggs. She ate her cinnamon toast. He watched the window over her head while she ate. Nothing moved on the road. The sun wasn't up yet, but the sky was getting brighter minute by minute, and you could start to see the individual drifts along the fence line and the black sticks of the apple trees he'd planted the summer Lily was 3. Behind him, on the couch, the blanket shifted. "Morning," she said. Her voice was rough. She was sitting up, blanket pulled to her chin, looking at the 2 of them across the kitchen table like she'd woken up in a museum and wasn't sure which way the exit was. Lily stared at her. Lily, who talked to every stranger in every grocery store in a 40-mile radius, had nothing to say. "Hey," Ethan said. "You want coffee? Please. Toast? If you've got it. Cinnamon or regular?" She almost smiled. It was small and tired, but it was there. "Regular's fine." "Regular it is." He poured the coffee. He brought it to her. She held it in both hands, and he saw her wince when her fingers wrapped around the mug, and he thought about the frostbite and how it was going to hurt worse now than it had last night, because thawed nerves complained louder than frozen ones. "Arya," he said, "this is my daughter, Lily." "Hi," Arya said. "Hi," Lily said. "I'm sorry I'm in your house." "It's okay." "I won't be here long." Lily nodded, serious, like she was receiving information at a very important meeting. Then she said, "Your hair's a mess." Lily, "It is, though." Arya did smile then, a real one, small and broken, but real. "Yeah," she said, "it really is." "I have a brush." "That's nice of you. Daddy had to put snarl spray in it this morning. Mine, I mean, not yours. Yours would need the whole bottle." Lily, "What?" "I'm being helpful." "Eat your toast." I ate my toast. "Eat the other piece." She ate the other piece. She ate it slowly, watching Arya the whole time, and Arya drank her coffee and looked like she was trying not to cry. And Ethan stood at the counter and pretended to be interested in the grain of the wood and wondered how, exactly, his life had changed shape this fast. After breakfast, he set Lily up with her coloring books at the kitchen table and moved Arya to the armchair by the stove, where she could put her feet up on the ottoman. The toes on her left foot had gone a color he didn't like. Gray-white at the tips, dusky red further down. He'd looked at them in the night, after she'd fallen back asleep. And he'd looked at them again now, and he'd known what he was going to have to say before he said it. "You need a doctor," he told her, quiet, so Lily wouldn't hear. "No. Your toes, I can feel them. You can feel pain in them. That's not the same thing. There's tissue there that might not come back. You wait too long, you lose them." "I'm not going to a hospital. There's a clinic in town. Doc Whelan's been there since before I was born. He's not going to ask questions. He's going to ask questions. He's going to ask me questions. I'll answer them. You don't have to say anything." She looked at him a long time. The stove clicked. Outside, somewhere far off, a crow was arguing with something. "Ethan," she said, using his name for the first time. It landed different than he'd expected. "You understand what I'm telling you, right? About the danger?" "I understand some of it. If someone sees me, if someone who doesn't live in your house sees me, it's over, for me. And I don't know yet how much of a risk it is for you. Doc Whelan's 81 years old. He plays checkers at the VFW every Thursday. He's not connected to anyone. It's not about connection. It's about a face in a window, a pharmacy tech who sees a chart, a receptionist who posts on Facebook. That's all it takes. So what do you want to do? Watch your foot turn black? I want you to let me rest one day. One day. If it's worse tomorrow, I'll go. Please." He pushed air out through his nose. He looked at her foot. He looked at her face. 24 hours, he said. "Then we're going. I don't care what you say. 24 hours. And I want the truth today. Not tonight. Not later. Today." She nodded. He left her by the stove. He put on his coat and his gloves, and he told Lily he was going out to check the fence line, and he took the shotgun with him. Lily didn't ask why. Lily was 6, and she had started to know which questions her father wanted her to ask and which ones he didn't, and he wasn't sure whether to be proud of her for it or to hate it. The snow was deep. He broke trail with his knees up to the gate and then out along the drive. The air was so cold it tasted like metal. Every breath in burned a little, and every breath out hung in front of him for a second before the wind took it. At the end of the drive, where the driveway met the county road, he stopped. Tire tracks. They came in from the east, and they stopped where the driveway met the road, and they sat there for, he looked, a good long while. The snow was compacted in a rectangle the size of a truck or a big SUV. Then the tracks pulled back onto the road and kept going west. Not a turn. A pause. He crouched and studied the tread marks. Wide tires. Aggressive pattern. Not a farm truck. Not a work truck. The kind of tire people paid money for because it looked like it meant business. He stood up. He looked down the road, east, the way they'd come. He looked west, the way they'd gone. Nothing. He walked back to the house with the shotgun held low and his heart making a slow, steady knock against the inside of his ribs. Inside, Lily was showing Arya her coloring book. "This one's a dragon," she was saying. "Usually dragons are green, but I made him purple, because that's my favorite." It's a good purple, Arya said. The other one's a princess. But she's not being rescued. She's doing the rescuing. That's even better. Daddy says girls can do anything. Your dad's right. Ethan stood in the mudroom and let them finish the conversation. He leaned the shotgun in the corner and took his coat off and hung it on the hook. He stomped the snow off his boots on the mat. When he came into the kitchen, Arya looked at him over Lily's head. He didn't have to say anything. She'd read it off him already. Lily, he said. Honey, why don't you bring the coloring book upstairs for a little? I need to talk to Arya grown-up talk. Boring. Yup. Can I bring the rabbit? Bring whoever you want. Can I bring the TV? Not that grown-up talk. She huffed. She closed the coloring book, she climbed off the chair, and she stopped on her way past Arya and said, If you want, I can bring the brush down later. I'd like that, Arya said. Okay. She went. They heard her on the stairs. They heard her door close. Ethan pulled a chair around and sat across from Arya's armchair. He leaned his elbows on his knees. Tracks at the end of the driveway, he said. Big SUV, probably. Stopped there for close to a minute, came from the east, went west. Happened sometime last night or this morning. She closed her eyes. How many? She asked. One vehicle. I can't tell how many people. There'd be at least two. There's always at least two. Arya. She opened her eyes. The tiredness in them had gone somewhere and been replaced by something else. Something harder. Okay, she said. Okay. I owe you. Yes. I'm going to tell you as little as I can because the more you know, the more they can make you say if they take you. I'm sorry, but that's how it is. I'll tell you enough. Start. She breathed in. She breathed out. My name is Arya. That part's true. I'm not going to give you the last name because it isn't mine anymore. I was a paralegal at a firm in a city I'm not going to name. I worked on one case. It was supposed to be a simple one, a corporate compliance thing, a shipping company, routine audit, some paperwork that didn't line up. I was supposed to organize the discovery. That's all. I was good at organizing. Okay. I found something that wasn't supposed to be there. It wasn't meant to be in the discovery. Somebody on the other side's team had scanned too much, just a handful of pages mixed in with the accounting. They didn't catch it, and I did because I read everything. I always read everything. That was my thing. What was it? A list. Of what? Names, locations, dates, amounts? Enough of it to make sense of, if you looked. Enough to put people in prison for a long time. Enough to make some of the people whose names were on it into people who would rather not be named at all. Ethan waited. Shipping, she said. It wasn't a shipping company. It was a shipping company on paper. What it actually was, I don't want to say the word in front of your daughter's coloring books, but it was bad. It involved people. It involved children, not as paying customers, as the product. The stove clicked. His hands were very still on his knees. Jesus, he said, before he could stop himself. He shut his eyes, opened them. How long ago? 6 weeks. I went to the partner on the case. I thought he'd know what to do. He didn't. Or he did, and what he did was the wrong thing, because 2 days later I came out of my building at night, and there was a man across the street who didn't belong there, and I went home another way, and when I got to my apartment the door was unlocked and I hadn't left it unlocked. You ran. I ran. I grabbed the case. I'd already made copies. I'd already put copies of the list and some other things in the case, and I went out the back of the building and I haven't stopped since. How long have you been running? A month, more or less. I don't stay anywhere more than 3 nights. I've been in 4 states. I thought I was doing okay. I thought I'd lost them. What happened? I got careless. I paid for a motel with a card that wasn't mine, but that had been mine once. I thought long enough had passed. It hadn't. 2 days later, a man showed up at the motel. I saw him in the lot before he saw me, and I got in my car and I drove. I drove until the car wouldn't drive anymore. I was low on gas and the heat was out, and the storm was coming in. And I pulled off where I could, and I walked, because I thought if I stayed in the car, I'd die in the car. You walked how far? I don't know. A long way. I stopped counting roads. And you came up my driveway. I came up your driveway because I saw your porch light. I didn't plan it. I wasn't aiming at you. I wasn't going to make it any further. Okay. I'm sorry, Ethan. I am so sorry I'm in your house. He sat with it. He sat with it for maybe a minute, looking at the stove, listening to the wind. The case, he said. Copies of what I found, some other things, some letters, affidavits from a couple of women I got out. You got women out. Before I ran, 2 of them. That's what made me realize how big it was. One of them was 16. Jesus, he said again. He couldn't help it. I know. So they want you because you're a witness. They want me because I have the only copy that isn't on a server they've already gotten to. They cleaned the firm. They cleaned my apartment. They cleaned the cloud. The case is the last one. If it disappears, so does everything in it. Why haven't you gone to the FBI? I tried. That's what got me moving in the first place. The person I tried to go through turned out to be, I don't know if he was paid or scared or both. He told somebody. That's how they got to my apartment. There's other agents. There are. I'm trying to find the right one. I thought I had a name. The name turned out to be wrong. That was 3 days ago. That was the day I ran out of people to call. He looked at her foot. He looked at the window. He looked at her face. How much time do I have? He said. I don't know. Guess. If the truck on your road was theirs, and I think it was, they're scouting. They aren't sure. If they were sure, they'd have come up the driveway. They'll come back. Tonight. Tomorrow night. Not longer than that. How many? 2, 3. They travel in small teams. Armed. Yes. Professional. Yes. Not military professional, private professional, but good enough. Are they going to know about Lily? The muscle at the corner of her jaw moved. If they do a drive-by, they might see a swing set. They'll know there's a kid. They won't care. They'll use her to make you talk. That's how they work. I need you to understand that's how they work, so that when I tell you what I'm about to tell you, you believe me. What are you about to tell me? I'm leaving tonight. No. Ethan, you can't walk. You can barely stand up. Your toes are going to fall off if you go out in this again. You won't make it a mile. I'll make it further than I would if I stay here and they come. If I go and they come, they'll find a man and his daughter and a house and no Arya. They'll search the place. They won't find me. They'll leave. They don't care about you. They care about the case. Give them the case. Give them the case. Give them the case, Ethan. It's not worth... You just told me what's in it. I know what's in it. You told me there's a 16-year-old girl on a piece of paper in my closet. I know what's in it. And you want me to hand it to them. I want you to keep your daughter alive. He stood up. He walked to the window. He stood there with his hands on his hips, and he looked at the white yard and the white fence and the white road and the black line of the trees beyond it, and he breathed slow. Behind him, quiet, she said, You don't even know me. I know. You don't owe me anything. I know. Please. He turned. If I give them the case, he said, those girls on those pages, that list, the ones who are still in it, the ones you didn't get out, what happens to them? She didn't answer. Arya. Nothing good. Say it. Nothing good. They stay. Or they get moved and they stay somewhere else. Some of them will die. Most of them will wish they had. And you're the only person in the world right now who's got paper on it, as far as I know. Then I'm not giving them the case. Ethan, I'm not giving them the case, and you're not leaving tonight because you die. Those are not the 2 options. There's other options. I just haven't figured out what they are yet. You're not... I'm going to ask you to shut up a minute and let me think. She shut up. He stood at the window and he thought. The sheriff was 30 miles down a road that had just been plowed once and would not be plowed again today. The phone at the house worked. The cell service was a joke. 2 bars on a good day, standing in the exact northeast corner of the upper bedroom. The nearest neighbors were the Herndons, 2 miles east, a retired couple who wintered in Arizona and weren't home. Past the Herndons, the next house was 8 miles out. West was worse. West was empty. He had 1 truck. He had 3/4 of a tank of gas. He had, in the safe under the stairs, the Remington and a Ruger 1022 and a Mossberg he'd inherited from his father and a box of shells for each. He had a daughter who weighed 40 pounds and asked a lot of questions. He had a house that had been built in 1915 and had thick log walls on 3 sides and a weak spot where the mudroom had been added on in the 70s with plywood and a thin door. He realized, one friend in this world who could be trusted with any of it. And that friend, his oldest friend, Cal Ruiz, lived in a cabin about 9 miles north by back roads, which in this weather might as well be on the moon. He turned back from the window. "Okay," he said. "Here's what's happening. You're staying. You're going to sleep as much as you can. I'm going to call one person. One. And I'm going to do it from the phone in the back bedroom because the wire's older and harder to tap than the one in the kitchen, which is a thing I heard on a podcast and probably isn't even true, but it makes me feel better. I'm going to go out and do some things to the property. And I'm going to sit up tonight and tomorrow night and as many nights as it takes with my father's gun across my knees and wait for them if they come." "Ethan, I wasn't done." She waited. "You are not going to tell Lily any of what you told me. If she asks, you got lost in the storm. That's it. Her mother walked out of this house when Lily was 3, and I'm not going to have another woman in this kitchen scare her in a week that somebody who loved her couldn't scare her in 3 years. She nodded. "And when this is over," he said, "one way or another, you are going to tell me your last name. Because the one thing I can't abide is not knowing who I buried a case in my closet for." "Okay. Okay." He went to the phone. He called Cal first. Cal picked up on the second ring, gravelly, mid-sip of whatever he was drinking, and Ethan said, "I need you." And Cal said when and where, and Ethan said my place. When the road lets you, and Cal said, "I'll dig out the blazer," and that was the whole call. They had known each other since they were 9. They had been in each other's weddings. Cal had been the one who'd driven Ethan to the hospital the night Lily was born, and Ethan's wife's water had broken, and her car had been in the shop, and Ethan had been too rattled to drive. Cal didn't need to be told what kind of bad it was. Cal could hear the kind of bad it was in a 6-word sentence. Then he called one more person. He called his sister Margaret, who lived in Billings, 4 hours east. "Meg. Ethan, is something wrong? I want to bring Lily to you for a few days." A pause. "When?" "Soon as the roads are clear enough for me to drive. Probably tomorrow. Maybe tonight if they keep the pass open." "Ethan, what's going on?" "Nothing I can say on the phone. Nothing I can say yet. I'll tell you when I get there. Right now I just need to know, can you take her?" "Of course I can take her." "You know I can take her. I've been trying to get you to let me take her since you moved out there." "I know." "Is she safe right now?" "Yes. Yes, right now she is safe." "Are you safe?" "I'll be fine." That's not the same answer. "Meg." "Okay, bring her. Call me before you leave." "I will." "Ethan." "Yeah." "I love you, you idiot." "Yeah." "Say it back." "I love you too." He hung up. He went back to the kitchen. Arya was asleep again. She'd drifted off in the chair, head tipped against the wing, mouth slightly open. He stood looking at her for a second. She looked younger asleep. He kept thinking that and being bothered by it. He covered her with the Afghan off the back of the couch. He went upstairs. Lily was on her bed with the coloring book and the rabbit. She looked up when he came in. "Bug." "Yeah." "How do you feel about Aunt Meg's?" Her face lit up, then immediately clouded. Lily was not slow. "For how long?" "Few days, maybe a week, just a little trip." "Why?" "Because I've got some stuff to fix around the house and it's going to be boring, and Aunt Meg's got the dog and the big TV, and she told me she'd take you to the mall." "The mall?" "The mall." Lily eyed him. Lily was suspicious of the mall as a concept. She was more suspicious of it as a bribe. "Is this because of the lady?" "Some of it, yeah. Some of it." "Are you in trouble?" "No." "Daddy?" "Bug. Don't lie to me." He sat down on the edge of her bed. The mattress sagged the way it always sagged. He could feel her small foot against his thigh through the comforter. He put his hand on her ankle. "I'm not in trouble," he said. "There might be some trouble coming for the lady. I'm going to help her not be in it. That's the grown-up talk part. You're going to go to Aunt Meg's and eat pancakes and watch cartoons and be a 6-year-old because that is your actual job. And when it's done, I'm going to come get you, and everything will be the way it was, except the lady will probably be gone, okay? Is the lady going to be okay? I'm going to do everything I can. That's not a yes. No, Bug. It's not. But it's what I've got. She looked at him. Her eyes went to his left hand, which was still on her ankle. She put her small hand on top of his hand. Okay, she said. Okay. But I don't want to go yet. You don't have to go yet. I want to stay today. You can stay today. Can I bring her the brush? If you want. I want. She got off the bed. She took the brush off her dresser. She went downstairs holding it in front of her with both hands like it was an offering. He stood in her doorway and watched her go. The rest of the morning, Lily brushed Arya's hair. She was not good at it. Arya winced twice. But Lily was careful with the tangles, and Arya didn't tell her to stop, and the two of them sat in the stove light with the Afghan over Arya's legs and Lily on the ottoman behind her, working the brush through a mess of dark hair a strand at a time, while outside the sky stayed the color of paper, and the wind did not quite die. Around noon, Cal called back. The pass was open to the north, but not the west. The county had 3 plows in the ditch. It would be dark before the main road past Ethan's place saw another one. Cal would come at first light tomorrow if he couldn't come sooner. Around 1, Ethan went out to the barn. He came back with 2 rolls of fishing line, a fistful of tin cans from the recycling, a handful of clothespins, and a can of black spray paint. He sat at the kitchen table while Lily watched cartoons in the living room, and Arya, awake now, watched him from the chair. "What are you making?" she said. "Warning system." "Where?" "Along the fence, 2 trip lines. One about 20 feet in from the main road, one about 10 feet from the house. Cans rigged to clothespins, low tech. You trip the line, the clothespin snaps off, the can falls. If you're paying attention, you hear it. They'll cut the line. They'll cut the first one they see. The second one runs under the snow. They won't see it until the can drops." She watched him work for a while. "You've done this before," she said. "No." "You're making it up." "Yes." "Huh. My father was a woodsman. He rigged cans on fishing line around the chicken yard to keep the coyotes off. This is the same idea, just a different coyote." She didn't answer that. He worked for an hour. He painted the cans black so they wouldn't catch the light. He sat them by the stove to dry. He cleaned the Remington and the Mossberg and laid them out on the table with the shells, and then put them away again, in places Lily wouldn't find them. At 2:30, the phone rang. He picked it up. "Cole residence." A pause. Not a long one, but a pause. "Mr. Cole?" A man's voice, pleasant, uninflected. "My name's Harris. I'm with the Department of Transportation. We're doing a quick check on a..." "Which department?" "I'm sorry?" "Which Department of Transportation? Federal or state?" "State, sir. Montana DOT. What's your badge number?" "I'm sorry?" "Your identification number. Every DOT employee's got one. What's yours?" Another pause. Not a long one. "Sir, I don't have that in front of me. I'm just..." "Uh-huh. We're trying to locate a vehicle that may have gone off the road in last night's storm. A silver sedan. We had reports of, 'Nobody came up my drive. Nobody's in my yard. You got the wrong number.' Sir, if you could just, you have a nice day." He hung up. He stood with his hand on the receiver a long time. Arya was staring at him. "What?" he said. "Your voice." "What about it?" "It just went somewhere. I was in the Army for 6 years." "You didn't tell me that." "You didn't ask." "What'd you do?" "Not interesting." "What did you do, Ethan?" He looked at her. "I was a combat medic," he said. 2 tours. I got out 10 years ago. I learned some things I'd rather not have learned. And I came home and I married my wife. And I built a fence. I have not fired a weapon at a human being in 11 years. And I have no intention of starting. I also have no intention of letting 2 men in a truck take anybody out of this house who doesn't want to go. That's it. That's the whole story. She was quiet. "Okay," she said. "Okay." He picked up the phone again. He called Cal back. "Cal?" "Yeah." "They just called the house, pretending to be DOT. Shit. Yeah. They got the name off the mailbox. They got the name off the mailbox. I'm leaving now." "Cal, the road?" "I'm leaving now, Ethan." Okay? He hung up. He went and sat in front of Arya. He put his hand on her good foot, the one without the frostbite, and he squeezed it once, gently. It's tonight, he said. Maybe tomorrow, but probably tonight. I know. Lily's going to Meg's in the morning. Not tonight. I don't want to put her in a truck on these roads in the dark. I'll sit up. Cal's coming. We'll be ready. What if they come before Cal does? Then I'll be ready alone. Ethan. What? If something happens to me tonight. Don't. If something happens to me and you're still standing, the case goes to a woman named Delia Park. She's a federal prosecutor in Spokane, not FBI. Prosecutor. You call her office directly. Don't go through anyone. You tell them the words Atlas Blue. That's it. Those 2 words. They'll put you through. Everything else is in the case. She'll know what to do. Atlas Blue. Atlas Blue. He nodded once. I'm not going to need that, he said. I know. I'm saying it out loud so you know I'm not going to need it. Okay, Ethan. He got up. He went to the window. The light was already starting to thin in the southwest. It was 4 o'clock, and in February, at this latitude, 4 o'clock was the beginning of the end of the day. Lily came in from the living room with the rabbit. Daddy? Yeah, Bug. The TV said there's going to be more snow tonight. He looked at her. He looked past her at Arya, who had heard, whose face had changed. Yeah, he said. I heard that too. Are we going to be okay? We're going to be okay. Are you going to stay up? Yes. With the gun? Yes. Okay. She hugged the rabbit tighter. She came over to the window. She put her hand on the glass next to his hip. Her breath made a little cloud on the pane. Outside at the top of the rise where the driveway met the county road. Something moved. It was only for a second. A shape between 2 drifts, dark, upright, then gone behind the line of scrub pine. It could have been a deer. It could have been a shadow thrown by a passing cloud. It could have been a man. Ethan put his hand on Lily's shoulder, and without looking down, without changing the sound of his voice, he said, Hey, Bug, why don't you go sit with Arya for a minute? Take the brush. See if you can get the other side done. Okay. She went. He stood at the window and he watched the rise, and he didn't move, and he didn't blink, and the light in the southwest kept thinning, and the wind started up again against the north eaves, and somewhere out past the black line of the trees, a second shape moved and stopped, and did not move again. The second shape didn't move again for almost a full minute, and that was how Ethan knew. Deer didn't stand still that long. Deer ate, or they spooked, or they drifted, but they didn't hold position on a ridgeline behind a screen of pine and watch a farmhouse. Only men did that, and only men with a reason. He kept his hand on the windowsill. He kept his face turned at the exact angle someone in a house turns his face when he is thinking about nothing in particular. Behind him, Lily was kneeling on the ottoman working the brush through the side of Arya's hair she hadn't gotten to yet, and she was telling Arya about a kid at her school named Brandon who had eaten a crayon. He let her voice wash past him. He let himself look with just his eyes, not his head, at the rise. The shape moved, 2 steps sideways. Behind another tree. Then stillness. He counted slowly. When he got to 30, he let his gaze drift off the rise like it had never been there. He turned from the window. He crossed the kitchen at an easy pace, picked up his coffee cup from the counter, rinsed it in the sink, set it on the drying rack. Hey, Bug. Yeah. Why don't you and Arya play in the back room for a while? Lily stopped brushing. She looked up at him. She was 6 years old, and she could read a room the way some adults couldn't, and her eyes went from his face to the window he'd just left to his face again. Okay, Daddy. Take the coloring books. Take the rabbit. Take a snack if you want. Okay. Don't go in front of any windows. Okay? She didn't ask why. That was the part that got him in the chest. That she didn't ask why. He watched her gather the books against her small body and help Arya off the chair with the kind of serious, careful attention she usually reserved for injured birds. And the 2 of them went together through the kitchen into the back hallway, Arya limping on the bandaged foot, Lily with an arm up under her elbow, like she could actually hold her up if she fell. When he was alone in the kitchen, he went to the mudroom and took the Remington off the peg and broke it open to check it and closed it again. He pulled the cell phone out of his hip pocket and walked to the exact northeast corner of the upstairs bedroom, the only spot in the house where 2 bars were a guarantee. And he texted Cal 3 words. They're already here. The answer came back inside a minute. ETA 90 minutes. Road bad. Hold 90 minutes. He stood at the upstairs window looking out over the same rise from a higher angle and saw nothing now. Whoever was out there had moved deeper into the tree line or had gone down to wait, and he ran the math. 90 minutes of daylight left, maybe. 90 minutes of Cal. If those 2 numbers happened to match up, he might get lucky. If they didn't, he'd be on his own for the part that mattered. He didn't love his odds. He had been in situations where his odds had been worse, and he had come out of them, but he had been 22 then, and he hadn't had a little girl downstairs. He went back down. In the back room, it had been his father's study once, and it had the smallest windows in the house set high on the wall. Arya was sitting on the rag rug with Lily beside her. Lily had the coloring book open on her lap. Arya had her back against the wall where the wall was thickest, a log wall 2 feet through, and he saw that she had put herself between Lily and the door on purpose. He crouched in the doorway. Arya. She looked up. They're on the rise. How many? I've seen 2. Could be more. Okay. Cal is an hour and a half out. Sheriff is longer. There's no power coming tonight. We're going to lose light in about an hour, maybe less with the cloud. I don't want them doing this in the dark if I can help it. You want to force it. I want to give them a reason to come in before the sun's down. If they think I'm moving you, they'll come fast, faster than they wanted to. They won't have time to plan it the way they'd want. How are you going to do that? I'm going to get in my truck alone, and I'm going to drive out of here east like I'm running. They'll follow. They'll have to. They can't take the chance you're in the truck. No. Arya, no, that's not... You leave this house, they'll come in anyway. They'll split. One follows the truck, one comes in. They know what they're doing. That's not going to work. Then I stop before the turn. I come back through the woods. I come up on whoever stayed from behind. Ethan, listen to yourself. I'm listening. You're talking about taking on armed men in the snow with a shotgun and a 6-year-old in the house. Lily is going to be in the back room. Lily is going to be behind 2 feet of log wall. I have thought about this. You haven't thought about it enough. Her voice had gone up. Lily looked at her. Arya put her hand on Lily's shoulder and smoothed the tone out. Draw me something, she said. Draw me something scary. Dragons. Okay? Okay. Lily bent her head to the paper. She pressed hard on the crayon. She was not going to look at the grown-ups. She had figured out a long time ago that there was information that happened when you looked at grown-ups, and more information that happened when you didn't, and she had decided, for now, not to look. Arya lowered her voice to a place under Lily's breathing. Listen to me, she said. I've been with these people for a month. I know how they work. They'll never, ever send 1 man to a house. 2, minimum. 1 will be covering the road, 1 will come in. There's probably a 3rd somewhere we haven't seen, watching the back. Okay? If you leave, the roadman follows the truck, because he has to, because if you're running with me in the floor of that cab, they can't let you go. And the houseman comes in. Fine. Maybe you can outrun the roadman. But the houseman finds me and your daughter in a room together and nobody between him and us. That's how it ends. That's exactly how it ends. He sat back on his heels. He didn't answer. I'm not trying to run your play, she said, softer. I'm trying to keep you alive while you run it. Whatever we do, it has to be here. Inchi, you know this house? They don't. The house is the one thing you have they don't. He looked at her a long moment. Okay, he said. Okay? Then here's what we do. He sat down on the floor across from them, back against the other wall, Lily between them on the rug coloring a dragon the color of a bruise. He talked low. This house has got 3 doors, front, side, and mudroom out the back. The front door is heavy oak. It's not coming in easy. The side door is oak too, but the frame's weaker. There's rot in the top corner I never fixed. The mudroom door is the weak one. It's the newest part of the house. It's plywood and a hollow core door and a bad deadbolt. That's where they'll come. You're sure? I'd come there. Anybody who walks the perimeter for 2 minutes will come there. Okay, so I'm going to make them think it's easier than it is. I'm going to leave the mudroom light on. I'm going to leave a pair of my boots on the mat and a coat on the hook so the shadow through the curtain looks right. I'm going to leave the mudroom door unlocked. You're going to let them in. I'm going to let them start to come in. Then they're going to hit the second line. The fishing line and the cans. The fishing line and the cans, and between those two trip points, I'm going to rig one more thing. There's a stretch of hallway from the mudroom into the kitchen that's narrow. Narrow. Shoulder width, if you're a big man. I'm going to get my father's old chest down from the loft, and I'm going to wedge it across that hall about 3 feet off the floor under a sheet with the top propped on a broomstick. They push through the door. They run into cans. They keep coming, fast, because cons is nothing. They trip on the chest they didn't see. They go down. That's my window. And the other one, the one outside. The one outside I'm going to handle on the way in. She looked at him. Ethan. What? You are a guy who raises a kid and mends a fence. Yes. You're telling me you're going to go out in the dark and put hands on a trained operator and come back in the house in under 4 minutes while the other one is already coming up the walk? Yes. Have you done that before? I've done something like that before. When? Don't ask me when. Where? Don't ask me where. She held his eyes. Okay, she said finally. Okay. What do I do? You stay in this room with my daughter. You stay against that wall. You keep her quiet and you keep her low. If a man comes into this room who isn't me, you use this. He pulled the little Ruger .22 out of the back of his waistband, where he had put it 20 minutes ago for exactly this conversation. And you put it center of mass until the slide locks back. You don't aim for the head, you don't aim for the leg. Center of mass, you've handled a gun before. Yes. Where? Don't ask me where. Almost, he smiled. He didn't, but almost. Safety's here, magazine's in, 10 rounds. If you squeeze it, don't yank it. 2 at a time. 2 paws, 2. I know how. Then I'm not going to insult you by saying it again. He put the gun in her hand. She took it without flinching. The way she took it told him a thing about her, and he didn't ask about that either, because there were a lot of women in this world who had learned to hold a gun, and none of them had learned it for a reason he wanted to hear right now. Lily had stopped coloring. She was staring at the gun in Arya's hand. Daddy. He went to her. He sat on the rug next to her. He took her face in both of his hands. Bug, look at me. The lady has a gun. I know. Why does the lady have a gun? Because I gave it to her. Why? He took a breath. He did not lie. He did not go down into the place where you lie to a child about what's happening, because once you started lying to a child about what was happening, you could not stop, and the child would know, and the child would never forgive you for the first lie, even if they forgave you for the second one. Bug, he said, there might be some men who come up to the house tonight, men who want to hurt the lady. I'm going to make sure they don't. But I need you in this room, with her, being quiet, while I handle it. I need you to listen to every single thing Arya tells you to do, okay? Her eyes were huge. Her chin was trembling, but she was not crying yet. Are you going to get hurt? She said. No. Daddy, I'm going to do everything I can not to get hurt, and I'm telling you the truth, okay? I am telling you the truth when I say I am doing everything I can. Okay. I love you. I love you. More than anything. More than anything. He kissed the top of her head. He held her a second longer than he needed to. Then he stood up and he walked out of the room without looking back, because if he looked back, he wouldn't leave. In the kitchen, he moved fast. He killed the overhead in the kitchen. He turned on the mudroom light. He set a pair of his boots on the mat and hung his work coat on the hook, where the shape would break the shadow through the frosted glass. He unlocked the mudroom door and left it unlocked. He went out the side door, the one with the rotten frame, which he was never going to let them know about, and he ran the second fishing line tight across the mudroom threshold, ankle high, with a row of paint cans on the other end, propped against the legs of the bench. He walked back the way he'd come and went to the loft in the barn for his father's chest. The chest was heavier than he remembered. He got it to the house. He set it on its side in the narrow hall between the mudroom and the kitchen, exactly where the floor narrowed. He draped a white sheet over it. In the gloom, with the mudroom light behind it silhouetting the hallway, it looked like nothing. It looked like a corner. It looked like a slightly weird shadow, the kind of thing a man moving fast through a strange house wouldn't see at all. On top of the chest, under the sheet, he laid the axe. He took 3 more minutes to walk the upstairs and turn on the lamp in Lily's bedroom, because a man looking at the house from outside would expect a light on in a kid's room at this hour, and a bedroom light, unmoving, was a very good way to tell a lie about who was where. He came back down. He stood in the kitchen in the half-dark and listened. Nothing. Wind. The house breathing at him. He put his head into the back room. 5 minutes, he said. I'm going out. Ethan. Yes. Don't die. Not planning on it. He went out the side door. He went slow. He stayed in the house shadow until the shadow ran out, and then he went flat on his belly in the snow, and he went across the 15 feet of exposed yard to the woodpile, and from the woodpile along the line of the fence, and from the fence into the stand of pine where the land rose toward the road. The sun was a smear now, low in the southwest, the kind of light that turned everything lavender. He had maybe 20 minutes of it. 15. He moved quieter than he would have thought he could. Some of it came back. Some of it you didn't forget. Some of it lived in your hips and your knees and the way you put a foot down without putting your weight on it. Heel first, roll through, wait, listen, breathe, move. The man on the rise was not facing the house. That was what saved Ethan's life right there, that first thing. The man had gotten bored. He had been there a long time. He was facing the road, looking south, probably watching for his partner to come up or for a cue on a radio, and he had his back half turned to the tree line where Ethan was coming from. He was dressed in white and gray camo, layered right, and he had a dark tactical rig around his chest, and he had a compact rifle on a single-point sling, and he had an earpiece. He was not a local. He was not a man who had been hired cheap. He was the kind of man Arya had been telling the truth about. Ethan stopped 40 feet out. The thing he was about to do, he had not done in 11 years. He had sworn on the day he came home from his second tour that he would not do it again, and he had kept that promise through a divorce and a winter. His well froze. In a year he'd lost 3 head of cattle to a cat that came down from the ridge. And he had kept it by telling himself that the man who had been able to do it was not the man who lived in this house. And that was the lie he had lived for 11 years, because that man had been in him the whole time, folded up in a drawer in the back of him. And he was opening the drawer now, and he was surprised how easy the drawer opened. He moved. The last 10 feet he did not think about. He did not plan them. He did them, the way the body does a thing. It has done enough times that the brain has outsourced it. And when it was over, the man on the rise was on his back in the snow and not making noise. And Ethan had the rifle in his hand and the earpiece in his pocket, and his knee was on the man's chest and his other hand was on the man's throat, and the man was looking up at him with eyes that had gone very still and very aware. How many of you? The man didn't answer. How many? Nothing. He pressed harder. One more chance. How many? The man croaked something. Say again. 3. 3 where? Me, road, house. Who's on the road? The man's eyes went a little glassy. Ethan eased off his throat half a turn. Who's on the road? Bremer? Where? Half-mile east, blue truck. Who's on the house? Coming up now. Now. Ethan looked down the hill. From this elevation, he could see the house in a way he could not from inside of it. And he could see, at the far side of the property, a dark shape coming along the edge of the fence at a crouch. Not more than 60 yards from the mudroom door, moving well, moving fast, moving like a man who had done it before. He was out of time. He looked back at the man under his knee. The man had taken the little pause to get a hand to his chest rig. Ethan saw the hand go. He didn't think. He brought the butt of the rifle down once across the man's temple, and the hand stopped moving, and the man's eyes rolled back, and Ethan did not check whether he had killed him or just put him out, because the other man was 60 yards from his daughter, and that was a distance that was closing. He ran. Not down the slope, which was open, which would put him in the sight of the man on the fence line. Around. Through the pines, then along the back edge of the barn, then across the gap between the barn and the house at a sprint, low. The rifle he'd taken up and in close so it didn't show against the snow. He hit the side door. He did not go through the side door. He went around it, around the corner of the house, and he came up to the mudroom side from the outside. The mudroom light was on. The frosted glass glowed. He put his back against the house and he breathed. Inside, he heard a footstep on the porch, then another, then the door handle turned. The mudroom door swung open inward. There was a second in which the man who came through it did what any man would do in that second. He stood in the threshold, framed in his own silhouette, rifle up, scanning. He had a balaclava on. Only his eyes showed. He stepped once, and the cans fell. They fell loud. Louder than Ethan had thought they'd be. 4 paint cans coming off a bench onto an oak floor, in a wooden mudroom at full volume. It was like a freight car dropping a load of scrap. The man in the doorway flinched, small, professional, fast, and his rifle came up hard, and he lunged forward into the hall. He hit the chest. He hit it at the shins, because the chest was set at shin height for exactly this reason. And he was moving at speed, and when you hit something that hard at the shins at that speed, you don't stay up. He pitched forward. He caught himself on his hands. His rifle hit the floor. His balaclava hit the floor. He was on one knee, and he was reaching for the rifle. And then a shape came in behind him from the mudroom and put a knee in his back and an arm across his throat. And the shape was Ethan. And the shape was not thinking, and the shape was not going to think. He took the rifle off the floor with his foot. He kicked it away down the hall. He held the choke. He held it past the point the man struggled and into the point the man stopped struggling, and then he held it past that, just one breath, 2, because he was not going to take a chance. And then he let the man down onto the hallway floor, and he zip-tied the man's hands behind his back with the cable ties from his back pocket, and he zip-tied the ankles, and he rolled the man into the corner of the mudroom, and he stood up, breathing hard, not as hard as he should have been. His hands were shaking. That part was familiar too. The shake always came after, never during. It was the body sending the fear in last. After the fear was useless. He pressed his hands against the wall of the mudroom, and he let the shake run through him, and he told himself to breathe. Then he remembered Bremer. Bremer was on the road, a half-mile east. A blue truck. Bremer had heard the cans. Maybe not. Maybe at half a mile the wind would have eaten them, but maybe he had. And Bremer hadn't heard the other 2 men come on the radio in a while. And Bremer wasn't dumb. Ethan went back into the house. Arya. No answer. Arya, it's me. Here. Her voice was from the back room, small, tight. He found her still against the wall, still with the pistol up. Lily pressed against her side and into the crook of her arm like a chick under a hen. Lily, with her face in Arya's ribs and her small hands fisted in the front of Arya's borrowed shirt. When Arya saw him, the pistol came down. She didn't say anything. Her face did a thing that was not crying but was not far from it. 1 down outside, he said. 1 down in the hall. 1 more on the road. He knows something's wrong. He's going to come. 2 minutes. Maybe 3. Daddy, Bug, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm right here. Lily turned her face into Arya's shirt harder. Arya, I need you back in position. I need Lily down behind you. I'm going to set up at the front window. If he comes up the drive, he comes in the front. Ethan, yes. You're bleeding. He looked down. He hadn't even felt it. A line down his right forearm. The second man's rifle front sight had caught him when it came down in the hall, or maybe it had been the chest. He couldn't remember. It was a clean, shallow cut, maybe 5 inches long. It wasn't going to kill anybody. It was going to make a mess. I'll deal with it. Press this on it, at least. She pulled the dish towel off the ottoman and handed it to him, and he took it and jammed it up under his shirt sleeve, and he nodded once, and he went. He went through the kitchen to the front room. He killed the last light. He crouched at the front window to the right of the curtain, rifle up, the one he had taken off the man on the ridge, and he watched the long, slow slope of his own driveway, and he waited. He did not have to wait long. The blue truck came up the road fast and did not slow for the driveway. It came up the driveway with the lights off, which, at dusk on snow and lavender light, was a stupid choice and a smart one at the same time, because the lights off meant he couldn't be seen from a long way out. But it also meant he couldn't see, and he was driving on memory and on what his 2 buddies had told him an hour ago about the shape of the yard. The truck stopped 40 feet short of the house. The driver's door opened. A man got out. He was big, bigger than either of the other 2. He had a rifle across his chest and he had a handgun at his hip, and he had a piece of tape over his mouth, which Ethan realized, with a little lurch, was not tape. It was a dark beard. "Hey!" the man called toward the house. "Hey, in the house!" Ethan did not answer. I know you got her. I don't need her. I need the case. You put the case in the snow between me and the door, and I drive off, and nobody else gets hurt tonight. Ethan still didn't answer. I got 2 men in there. You think I don't know they'd have come out by now if they were walking? You think I don't know what you just did? Ethan shifted the rifle along the sill. He settled the dot on the center of the man's chest. The dot shook because his hands were still shaking from the mudroom, and because his arm hurt, and because he had not aimed a rifle at a human being in 11 years, and part of him did not want to aim one at a human being now. But part of him was in a back room in his own house with his 6-year-old and a woman he'd pulled out of a snowbank. And that part of him was perfectly calm. You got a daughter in there, mister, the man yelled. Don't be an idiot. Give me the case. I walk. Everybody goes home. Ethan's finger moved to the trigger. Lights on the road. For a split second, he thought it was more of them. Another truck. A backup car. And he felt his stomach drop out from under him. And he thought, Cal, come on, Cal. And then he saw the lights. And the lights were high, and the lights were yellow, and the shape behind the lights was the shape of an old Chevrolet Blazer with a push bar on the front, and a line of fog lamps across the top rack, and the Blazer was not slowing down. The bearded man at the truck heard it a beat too late. He turned. He started to bring the rifle up. The Blazer came down the driveway at 40 miles an hour, no brakes, and the push bar caught the bearded man across the hip and threw him sideways into the blue truck with a sound like a door slamming hard. And the Blazer slid sideways in the snow and came to a stop half broadside across the drive. And the driver's door flew open, and a short, thick man in a Carhartt jacket and a ball cap jumped out with an old lever action in one hand and a thermos in the other. Ethan, Cal yelled. You alive in there? Yeah. Who's in the yard? He's bad. There's one more in the mudroom, tied up. There's one on the ridge, tied up or dead. I don't know which. Jesus, Ethan. I'm coming out. Don't shoot me. I ain't gonna shoot you. Ethan came out the front door slow, rifle low. Cal had the bearded man covered from 6 feet with the lever action, and the bearded man wasn't moving. He was breathing. Ethan could see that. But his hip was wrong, and his leg was wrong, and he was not getting up tonight and maybe not tomorrow. Cal looked him up and down. You're bleeding. I know. A lot. I know, Cal. Who's the girl? Inside. She the reason? Yeah. Ethan. Yeah. I brought the sat phone. Ethan breathed out, long, slow. You brought the sat phone. Figured you might want to make a call that didn't go through the county switch. Cal, I love you. I love you too, brother. Get in the house. You look like hell. I got this one. Ethan went back in the house. He went straight through the kitchen to the back room, and he was halfway through saying Lily's name when Lily hit him at the knees like a small cannonball, and he sat down on the floor right there because his leg didn't want to hold him the way it had held him 10 minutes ago, and he put both arms around her and he put his face into her hair. Daddy? I'm here. I'm here, Bug. You're bleeding on me. Sorry. It's okay. I'm sorry, Bug. It's okay, Daddy. Over Lily's head, Arya sat against the wall with the point .22 on her lap. And she looked at him, and he looked at her, and neither of them said anything for a long second. Then she said, very quiet, You were in the army. Yeah. You were more than a medic. Some of the time. Yeah. He didn't explain. She didn't ask. Lily was making a small noise into his shirt that wasn't quite crying and wasn't quite not, and he rocked her, just a little, the way he had rocked her when she was small enough that rocking was what her body asked for. Arya. Yeah. You said you had a name. Spokane. Park. Delia Park. Atlas Blue. Atlas Blue. We're going to call her tonight. Okay. Cal brought a sat phone. She put her hand over her face. He watched her shoulders do one small thing and then stop. When she took her hand away, her eyes were wet, but her face was steady. Okay, she said again. Out in the driveway, Cal was on his knees in the snow next to the bearded man, tying his hands with baling wire. Because Cal did not carry zip ties, he carried baling wire. Because Cal was Cal. Past Cal, up on the rise, the sky was going from lavender into the dark blue that came before real night. And the first stars were out above the black line of the pines. And a wind that had been hard all day had started, finally, to ease. In his front hall, on the oak floor his grandfather had laid in 1918, Ethan Cole sat with his daughter in his lap and his arm around his knee and his eyes on the door, and the blood from the cut on his forearm made a small dark spot on the floorboards that he would find a week later, and that would not come out, and that he would not, in the end, try very hard to make come out. The dark spot on the floorboards was still wet when the sheriff finally came down the drive at 9:10, and by then the worst of the night was already behind them, which was a thing Ethan would not fully believe for another 3 days. Cal had gotten the sat phone working on the third try, because the antenna cable had frozen to itself in his truck bed, and he had to thaw it against the wood stove for 5 minutes before the signal came up. Arya had sat at the kitchen table with the phone in both hands and her hair still half brushed, and told Delia Park's answering service, in a voice Ethan had not heard her use before, flat, trained, lawyer-voiced, the 2 words that mattered. And then she had said, "Call me back at this number in 10 minutes," and she had hung up, and she had put her face in her hands, and she had not moved for almost all of the 10 minutes. Delia Park had called back in 7. The conversation had taken 41 minutes. Ethan had heard one side of it from the front room, where he had sat on the couch with Lily curled into him like a kitten, her fist in the front of his shirt. And he had heard Arya say yes a lot, and no, the originals, and 2 of them are still alive, one I'm not sure, and once, tightly, his daughter is 6. Delia, this is not... Yes, I know. And at the end of it, Arya had come into the front room and crouched down in front of the couch and put her hand on the arm of it and said, "The federal marshals are 8 hours out, and they are coming, and Delia says nobody else dies tonight." "Okay," Ethan had said. "Okay," she had said. And she had put her forehead against the arm of the couch, right next to his knee, for about 30 seconds. And he had put his hand on the crown of her head, and neither of them had said anything else about it. The sheriff came down the drive with 1 deputy and no siren. Cal had called him an hour before on the sat phone and had told him the version of the story they had agreed on. Home invasion, Ethan defended his property, suspects in custody, 1 badly hurt, ambulance needed but no rush. And the sheriff, Walt Bergen, who had known Ethan's father and had carried Ethan once on his shoulders at a 4th of July picnic in 1987, had said, "Stay put, don't untie anybody, I'm coming," and he had come. Walt Bergen was 68 years old and walked with a hitch from a horse he'd come off of in the 90s, and he came through the front door with his hat in one hand and his flashlight in the other, and the first thing he did was look at Ethan, and the second thing he did was look at Lily, asleep now against her father's chest, and the third thing he did was sit down in the armchair across from the couch, with a long, slow sigh that sounded like a man lowering himself into a hot bath. "Son," he said, "Walt, you want to tell me what happened here tonight? Some of it. Is some of it going to be enough? Some of it is going to have to be for now. There are federal people coming who are going to tell you the rest. There's a U.S. attorney on the phone who will back that up if you want to talk to her. Federal people." "Yes, sir." Walt looked at him for a long time. He had a face that had been weather and worry for 50 years and had gone soft in the last 10, and the softness was not weakness. "Your dad would have done the same thing you did tonight," he said finally. "Whatever it was. I don't need the story yet. Tell me which bodies need which ambulance, and I'll start there." 2 need an ambulance. One's tied in the mudroom, alive, banged up, but fine. One's on the rise, north side, at the tree line. I don't know about him. I hit him hard. The third is in the driveway, and he's got a broken hip and a broken leg, and probably some things inside him, and Cal did that, with the blazer, which I'll say on paper whenever you need me to. Cal hit him with the blazer. He did? On purpose. He did. Okay. Walt got on his radio, which was a handheld, and he talked quiet into it for about 3 minutes. When he was done, he put the radio back in his belt, and he looked at Arya, who was sitting in the kitchen doorway on a chair Cal had brought her so she wouldn't have to stand on her bad foot. "Ma'am? Sheriff? You got a name you're willing to give me?" "Arya Blake." It was the first time Ethan had heard it. He didn't move because Lily was asleep on him, but he felt something in his chest resettle, like a book being slid into the right shelf. "Blake," Walt said. "All right. You want to tell me how you wound up in Ethan Cole's yard?" "I was running from the men who came to his house tonight. I walked out of a storm. He pulled me in. If he'd left me in the snow, I would have died. I know that's not the story you came for, but that's the true part, and the rest is federal." Walt nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "All right. I'll take that for now. He looked at Ethan. Son, I'm going to need to talk to you some more in the morning. Tonight I'm going to clear the scene and get these men to Missoula, and I'm going to let you sleep in your own house if you can, because you look like hell. That okay with you? Yes, sir. You armed right now? Still am, yeah. Stay that way till I tell you otherwise. Yes, sir. Walt got up. He looked at Lily on Ethan's chest. He reached out and put 2 fingers very gently against the back of her small hand where it was curled in her father's shirt. He didn't say anything. Then he nodded at Arya and he went out to his truck. The ambulance came at 10:20. The second ambulance came at 11 because the first one could not fit all 3 men. The man from the ridge was alive. He did not wake up before they loaded him, but he was breathing, and the EMT at his side said he would make it, probably. And Ethan, who had not realized he had been carrying the question until the answer came, found he could breathe a little deeper after that. By midnight, the driveway was empty except for Cal's Blazer and the ruts in the snow where the trucks had been. The blue truck had been towed. The 3 men were gone. Walt had left a young deputy named Ramirez at the end of the drive in a cruiser with a thermos of coffee and a shotgun and orders to stay until dawn, and Ramirez had waved at Ethan and said, "You get some sleep, Mr. Cole. I got the road." And Ethan had almost laughed at the idea of sleep, but he had waved back. Inside, Cal had made grilled cheese sandwiches on the stove, because Cal's answer to most crises was grilled cheese, and he set 2 of them on a plate in front of Arya and said, "Eat something, honey. You're the color of skim milk." "I've been told." "Eat." She ate. Ethan had carried Lily up to her own bed. He had tucked her in. He had sat on the edge of the mattress for longer than he needed to, watching her face in the lamplight, the tiny line between her brows that even sleep couldn't quite smooth out. He had kissed her forehead. He had left her door open and the lamp on low. When he came downstairs, Arya was at the kitchen table with half a sandwich in front of her and the steel case on the table next to the sandwich. She had opened it. "I wanted you to see," she said, "before the marshals came. I wanted you to know what you kept in your closet. You don't have to eat." "I do. Sit down, Ethan." He sat. Inside the case there were papers, there were thumb drives, there were photographs. Only a few, paper clipped together. And she did not turn those over, and he did not ask her to. There was a list, a long one, printed in small black type on 12 pages stapled at the corner. There were names on it. There were numbers. There were dates. She put her finger, very lightly, on a name on the 3rd page. "This one," she said. "This one is the girl I told you about. She's not 16 anymore. She'd be 19 now. I got her out in November. She's in a shelter I'm not going to name, and when Delia brings this in, she's going to be one of the witnesses, and she's going to be a free person instead of a rumor." "Okay, this one." She moved her finger down 3 lines. "This one is a man who owns 6 restaurants in the same city. He's on the board of 2 charities. He has a daughter your Lily's age. He's been buying children for 4 years. Ethan didn't answer. "I wanted you to know," she said. "I wanted you to know what the thing was that was in the house, so that when the marshals take it and I go with them, you know what it was you saved." "I didn't save it. You saved it. I just opened a door." "Ethan." "What?" "You did more than open a door." He looked at the case. He looked at her hand on the paper. Her hand had a tremor in it that hadn't been there an hour ago. Adrenaline dump, he thought. It got everybody eventually. It got him too, sometime between Walt leaving and now. A shake that kept starting and stopping in his jaw. A shake he was hiding by keeping his teeth together. "What time do the marshals get here?" he said. "They said 8 hours from the call, so 7, maybe? 6. Okay. Ethan. Yeah. After tonight, I go with them. I know. I don't know when I come back out, or if. I know. It could be months. It could be a year." Delia said, she said once the indictments start landing, there's going to be noise. She said it could get a lot worse before it gets better. She said I'd be safer not in Montana, not anywhere people might know to look, until the top names on that list are in custody. I figured. She looked at her hands. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" "For what this has been." "Arya." "Yeah, you don't owe me an apology. You don't owe anybody in this house an apology. You were a woman with a piece of paper in her hand, and the paper had names on it, and you didn't put it down. You could have put it down. You could have put it down 50 times in 6 weeks and had a normal life on the other side of that decision, and nobody would have known but you. You didn't. That's not a thing I need an apology for. That's a thing I need to say thank you for. And I haven't figured out yet how to say it, so I'm just going to say it the simple way, and you're going to let me. Thank you. Borshintarang. She didn't answer for a long moment. You're welcome, she said finally, and it came out small and wrecked and real. Cal was standing at the stove pretending not to listen. He was doing a bad job of it. He turned the burner off and he set the pan in the sink and he said, I'm going to sit up in the truck with Ramirez for a while. You two need the kitchen. Cal? Ethan said. Yeah. Thanks for coming. Shut up. Thanks for coming, Cal. Shut up, Ethan. He went out. The door closed behind him soft. Arya and Ethan sat in the kitchen with the case open between them and the clock on the wall ticking toward 2 a.m, and for a long time they didn't say anything. He got up once and put another log in the stove. She watched him do it. When he sat back down, she reached across the table and she put her hand on his wrist above where the gauze was, and she left it there. I'm not very good at this, she said. At what? The part after. The part where you sit in a kitchen with somebody and the thing is over and you're supposed to... I don't know what you're supposed to do. I've never done it. I've been running for a month. Before that, I worked 60 hours a week. Before that, it doesn't matter. I'm not good at sitting in a kitchen. Neither am I. You seem all right at it. I've had practice since my wife left. There's a lot of kitchen to sit in when it's just you and a kid who goes to bed at 8. She almost smiled. Where did she go? She asked. Reno. Last I heard. She didn't want this. She said so eventually when she got around to saying it. She wanted a different shape of life than the one we had, and I don't fault her for it. I do fault her for how she told Lily, which was she didn't. She just went. That one I'll be mad about till I die. Lily doesn't ask. Lily stopped asking after about a year. That's the part that breaks my heart, not the asking. Arya nodded. She kept her hand on his wrist. Can I tell you something? She said. Yeah. The first time I woke up on your couch, I thought I'd made a mistake walking up the driveway. I thought you'd call somebody. I thought by morning I'd be in handcuffs or dead. And then you gave me a glass of water and you asked me my name and I looked at your face and I thought, this is a man who has been tired for a long time and he's going to help me anyway. And I didn't know what to do with that. Arya, let me finish. Okay, I'm telling you because I don't know when I'm going to get to tell you. I'm telling you because the marshals are coming at 7 and I go with them, and I don't know what my life looks like on the other side of the next 6 months, and I'm not going to pretend I do. But I want you to know that if I get to come back out, when I get to come back out, if there is a door at this house that is still open to me, I would like to walk through it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not asking for anything now. I know what now is. I want you to know that door is a thing I'd come back for. He looked at her. He thought about how he had gone 3 years without letting another person's hand stay on his wrist this long. He thought about how Lily had, that morning, offered this woman the hairbrush, which was a thing Lily did not offer to just anybody. He thought about how his own chest had done its settling thing when Arya had said Blake, like a latch finding its groove. The door's open, he said. Okay, you come back when you can come back. I'm not going anywhere. This house isn't going anywhere. Lily's not going anywhere. Whenever you can come up the drive in daylight, come up the drive. Okay? Don't promise me anything. I don't want to promise from you in this kitchen tonight. I want you to go do what you have to do, and I want you to not look back until looking back is safe, and I want you to come when you can come. That's it. Okay? That's the deal. That's the deal. She took her hand off his wrist. She took his hand instead, palm against palm on the kitchen table, between the steel case and the plate with the half-eaten sandwich on it. They sat like that for a while. The marshals came at 6:58. 2 vehicles, 1 big SUV and 1 sedan, both dark, both clean. 4 people out of them, 2 women, 2 men, and one of the women had an ID that said Delia Park on it in small blue letters, and she came up onto Ethan's porch and shook his hand and said, Mr. Cole, I owe you more than I'm going to have time to say this morning, so I'll say it quick. Thank you. We have it from here. Okay. We're going to need an hour of your time for a statement. Not today. Today we move. A colleague will come back in the next 48 hours. She'll be alone. She'll have my direct line. You answer anybody else, you call me first. Okay. Your daughter doing all right? She will be. My oldest is 8, Delia said. I get it. She went past him into the kitchen. Arya stood up from the table. She had her coat on, Ethan's old coat, because her own was ruined and she was keeping it. And she had the case in one hand, and when she saw Delia, her face did something small and cracked, and she said, Delia. Hey, kid. Hi. Come on, let's go. Okay. Arya turned. Lily was on the stairs. She had come down sometime in the last 5 minutes. She had the rabbit in one hand and the brush in the other, and she was holding the brush out. Take it, she said, so you can do your own hair till you come back. Arya crossed the kitchen and crouched in front of her and took the brush. Thank you, Lily. You're welcome. I'm coming back, okay? Okay? You take care of your dad. I will. Arya kissed the top of Lily's head. She stood up. She looked at Ethan one more time, one long, steady look, across the kitchen, across the morning, across a decision he would not have to make alone. And she went out to the car with Delia, and the door closed behind them, and the car started, and the car went up the drive, and the car was gone. Lily stood at the door watching until there was nothing left to watch. Then she turned around and she held the rabbit up to her father and she said, She forgot to take the brush home. She took the brush, Bug. No, I mean hers, her brush. She only took mine. That's okay. I think that was on purpose. Lily considered this. Oh, she said. She walked across the kitchen and she climbed up into the chair where Arya had been sitting, and she put the rabbit on the table in front of her, and she took the half-eaten sandwich on the plate, and she picked at the corner of it. Daddy? Yeah. Is it over? He sat down across from her. He put his hand over her hand. The bad part's over, Bug. The bad part's over. Is there more parts? There's always more parts. Good parts? Yeah, some good ones. I think there's some good ones coming. Okay. She took a bite of the sandwich. She chewed. She looked out the window at the empty drive where the sun was finally coming up over the ridge, throwing long blue shadows across the snow, turning the tops of the drifts the color of a good peach. Okay, Daddy, she said again. And outside, somewhere up on the county road, Cal's Blazer fired up with a cough and a rumble and started the slow grind back toward home, the way things do after a long night. Loud at first, then quieter, then just the sound of an engine getting smaller in the distance, until it was only the wind again. And the wind, this morning, had nothing mean left in it at all. The engine noise of Cal's Blazer had been gone a long time by the time Ethan finally sat down on the porch step with his coffee, and the morning after was not, he found, the thing he had expected it to be. He had thought, on the rare nights in the army when he had let himself think about what coming home from a thing was, that the morning after was the loud morning, that there would be phone calls and reporters and noise. But the morning after Arya Blake left his driveway in a dark sedan was quiet. The phone didn't ring. No trucks came up the road. Ramirez drove off at 9, waving once. The sky over the ridge went from peach to the pale, hard blue of a Montana winter, and Lily went out in the yard in her snow boots and made a lopsided snowman with the rabbit watching her from the porch rail, and the only thing that reminded him of the night before was the dark spot on the oak floor by the front door, and the gauze on his arm, and the empty chair in the kitchen where, for 2 days, somebody else had been sitting. That was the part he hadn't been ready for. How loud an empty chair could be. The first week he didn't hear from her. Delia had told him he wouldn't. The second week he got a letter, no return address, postmarked out of a town in Oregon he'd never heard of. It said, I am somewhere safe. I am warm. I am doing the thing. Tell Lily I used her brush this morning. A. He read it twice standing at the mailbox, and then he put it in the front pocket of his shirt, and he walked back up the drive with his hand over the pocket like he was keeping something from blowing away. The third week, the news broke. It broke small at first. A federal indictment in Spokane, 14 names, a shipping company out of Seattle, charges that ran to 42 counts. And then it broke bigger, because one of the 14 names belonged to a man who owned 6 restaurants in a city that mattered, and another name belonged to a state senator in a state that was not Montana, And by the end of the month, it was on the national news every night for a while. And Ethan watched some of it with the sound off. And a lot of it he turned off entirely because Lily was in the room and because a man on a television set in Washington was not going to tell him anything he didn't already know. What he did know was this: the list had landed. The list had done what Arya had walked across 3 states in a winter coat to make sure it would do. 41 people were arrested in the first wave, 19 in the second. A shelter in a city he had never been to received 7 young women whose names were now in court filings instead of on a piece of paper in a steel case, and one of those 7 was 19 years old, and her name was Marta, and she testified on a Tuesday in April, and Ethan did not know any of this except that Arya's 4th letter told him, "Marta spoke today. She was scared, but she spoke. They will never touch her again." He kept the letters in a drawer in his nightstand. He did not answer them, because there was no address on them to answer to. He wrote back anyway, on lined paper, and he put the answers in the same drawer. He told her about the fence he was mending on the south side. He told her about Lily's loose tooth. He told her, in one letter, that he had finally painted over the scuff by the back door that had bothered him for 3 years, and that he had done it on a Sunday, and that he had done it with the wrong color, and that he was going to have to do it again. In July, she came home. She came up the drive at 2 in the afternoon in a rental car, and she was alone. And she did not look over her shoulder when she got out, and that was how he knew it was really over. Not from the news, not from Delia Park's careful phone call the week before, but from the way Arya Blake stood in his driveway in the sun with her hands in her pockets and did not once look behind her. Lily saw her first. Lily had been on the porch with the rabbit, and she had been watching the road with the patience of a child who has been told somebody might come, and who has decided to believe it. And when the car came down the drive, she stood up slow. And then she went very fast, and Arya dropped her bag in the dust and caught her on the last 3 feet of the walk and lifted her off the ground. And Lily, who was not a crier, cried into the side of Arya's neck for about 40 seconds without making a sound. And Arya, who had not cried on Ethan's couch, or in Ethan's kitchen, or in a federal sedan leaving his driveway in the snow, cried into Lily's hair. Ethan watched from the porch step, the coffee in his hand going cold for the 1,000th time, and he did not go to them because this was their reunion, not his, and the one he wanted could wait another minute. When she finally looked up at him over Lily's shoulder, she was smiling, and the smile had new lines at the corners of her eyes that she had not had in February, and he thought, that's what 6 months of the real world does. And he thought, I've got those lines too, around mine. He got up off the step. He went down the 3 porch boards. He stopped about 4 feet from her. You came back. I told you I would. You told me not to count on it. I'm not good at taking my own advice. Neither am I. She set Lily down. Lily did not let go of her hand. I got an apartment in town, Arya said, above the hardware store. Karen's letting me have it month to month. I've got a job at the clerk's office that's mostly filing and some paralegal work for the 2 lawyers in the county. I'm not here to... I don't want to assume anything, Ethan. I got my own place. I got my own door. I'm here and I'm staying, and anything after that is whatever it is. Okay. Okay. You want coffee? I'd like coffee. Come on. She came up onto the porch. Lily did not release her hand the entire way. At the door, Arya stopped. The floor, she said. He looked down. The dark spot was still there. It had gone brown and then almost black, and it was the size of a quarter, and it sat just inside the threshold where anybody who came in from the driveway would step across it without knowing. I couldn't get it out, he said. Did you try? Some. Not very hard. Not very hard. Good. She stepped over it. In the kitchen, she sat in the chair she had sat in before, and he made coffee the way he had made it in February. And Lily climbed up in the 3rd chair with the rabbit and watched them both with the serious, watchful attention of a child who had lost her mother once and was not going to lose this new thing without keeping her eye on it. You're all right? He said. I'm all right. I'll be all right. It's going to take a while. It takes what it takes. How about you? I'm all right. Lily? She had some nights. She's better now. She'll still come in my room some nights. But she's better. Okay. The men, 3 of them plead out. The one from the ridge lost an eye, but he lived. He's going to do 8 years. The bearded one, Delia got him 22, the one in the mudroom. He rolled on everybody. He's in a program. He won't do any real time. I don't love it. I understand it. Ethan nodded. And the rest of the list? Most of it, not all. You don't get all of it. I had to make peace with that. There's one, the senator. They couldn't make it stick. He'll be primaried out probably. He won't go to prison. That one keeps me up some nights. But the rest went the way it was supposed to go. And the girls I got out are not going back, ever. That's the part I hold on to. Hold on to it. I do. Lily had been quiet for a long time. She spoke up now, small and clear. Arya. Yeah. Can I show you something? Yes. It's upstairs. It's a picture I drew of you. Daddy put it on the fridge, but then I got embarrassed and made him put it in my drawer. Do you want to see it? I want to see it very much. Lily slid off the chair and tugged her hand, and Arya went up the stairs with her, and Ethan sat alone in his kitchen listening to the 2 sets of footsteps on the boards overhead, and he put his hand flat on the table and he breathed in and he breathed out, and he thought about a thing he had been thinking about for 6 months. He thought about how a man can spend 3 years telling himself his door is closed because another person closed it on him, and how one night in a storm can show him it was never closed, only heavy, and that the weight of it had been his own hand on it the whole time. He thought about how Lily had handed a stranger a hairbrush in a kitchen the morning after she had almost lost her father, and how children knew things about other people sometimes before the adults did, and how he had learned, late in his life, to watch his daughter's face when somebody walked into a room and let her face tell him what his own face was too tired to read. He thought about Arya Blake walking 300 miles in the wrong coat to carry a piece of paper to a woman in Spokane, and he thought about how the world mostly turned because of people like that, not the loud ones, not the ones on the television, but the ones who picked up a piece of paper and didn't put it down. He thought about courage, and he thought about what it cost, and he thought about how, in the end, it didn't make you special. It just made you tired in a particular way that the right kind of person could see and love you for. And he thought about himself. He thought about the man he had been in February, who had opened a door in a storm, and the man he had been in the army, who had done things he did not tell anybody about, and the man he was now, in a kitchen in July, with the sun coming through the window and hitting the table in a bright yellow bar. And he thought that those 3 men were all him, and that the third one, the one in the kitchen, did not have to apologize to the first 2 for being softer than them. You could be a man who had done hard things and still sit in the sun and want a quiet life. The 2 did not cancel each other out. That was a thing he had needed a winter to learn. Upstairs, Arya and Lily were laughing about something. It was a small laugh, the kind that comes through a ceiling as a kind of music rather than as words. And he listened to it, and he did not move. And he let his coffee go cold for 1 more minute. When Arya came back down alone, Lily had stayed up in her room to find some other treasure. She stopped in the kitchen doorway. She looked at him at the table in the sun, and he looked at her in the doorway, and neither of them moved for a while. Ethan. Yeah. I used to think the thing I was going to do with my life was something big. When I was a kid, when I was in law school, I thought I was going to change something, argue something, be on a list of people who mattered. Okay, I'm not going to be on that list. I don't think that's true. Let me finish. Okay, I'm not going to be on that list. I'm going to be a woman who lives above a hardware store in a town of 800 people and files papers at a courthouse that still has a typewriter in the closet. And I spent 6 months thinking that was going to feel like a loss. And I got here today, and it doesn't. It feels like the right size of a life for me, for now. And I wanted you to know that, because I don't want you thinking I came back here because I had nowhere else to go. I came back here because I wanted to, okay? Okay, he stood up. He did not cross the kitchen fast. He crossed it slow, the way he had walked out to her in the snow 5 months before. And he stopped in front of her, and he put his hand along the side of her face, and she closed her eyes, and he did not kiss her yet, because kissing her yet was not the thing. He just stood there with his hand on the side of her face, and she leaned into it, and after a second she put her hand up and held his wrist. And they stood in this kitchen doorway like that, while the sun moved half an inch across the table behind them, and that was enough. It was enough. It was the beginning of something that did not need to be announced, the way the best beginnings don't, the way the front door of an old house swings open a little in a summer breeze without anybody having to push it. Later, much later, in the fall, when the apple trees he had planted when Lily was 3 finally gave him their first real harvest, and Arya was up on the ladder picking the high ones because her back was better than his, and she liked being on a ladder, and he had stopped arguing with her about it. He would think back on that winter, and on the woman who had collapsed in his snow, and on the daughter who had handed her a brush, and on the friend who had come down a closed road in a rusted blazer, and on the old sheriff who had sat in the armchair and asked what kind of story it was going to be. And he would think that if his life had a shape at all, it was the shape of a door that he had almost kept closed once and had been glad, ever since, that he hadn't. Because the truth he had decided was this: everybody got 1 or 2 nights in a life where the door opened and they had to choose. Most nights the door stayed shut and the weather outside was just weather. But there were those other nights, rare, unkind, impossible to prepare for, when somebody was on the other side, and the storm was real, and the choice was yours. You could stand behind the door and be safe, or you could open it and take on everything that walked in with the cold, and find out the hard way that the person you'd let in had been carrying all along the thing your life had been quietly missing. He had opened the door. He did not regret it. He never would. And up on the ladder in the October light, Arya said his name, not because she needed anything, just to say it. And Lily came running across the grass with an apple too big for her hand. And Ethan Cole stood under his own tree on his own land and watched the two of them, and thought that for a man who had spent a long time believing his best days were behind him, he had been, it turned out, very badly wrong. Some doors stay open, some second chances take, and some nights in the snow become, in the end, the first night of everything that comes after.